I'm so glad that you joined me today. I'm going to talk about there's a bigger story beyond the relationship messes. And this is part of what I call the divine invitations when we're able to see a bigger purpose and a bigger story. So here's what I mean by that. First of all, I've got to tell you about today. It was really exciting. I met face-to-face here in Chattanooga with my first meetup group. I'm doing 5 Thursdays in a row, and this was the first one. And it's all about getting beyond messy relationships. Of course, I'm talking about my book because I can't not talk about my book, Beyond Messy Relationships. And if you're joining me for the first time, you're probably wondering, okay, who is this woman? I'm Judy Herman. I'm the author of Beyond Messy Relationships, and I'm also a licensed counselor in the state of Tennessee, and I have my private practice in Chattanooga. So beyond my private practice, I set up a meetup group. I've never done this before, and these are folks that signed up, and most of them, probably 90% of them, I had never met before. So it was really cool just to meet some new people face to face. There's some value, of course, of coming here and talking with you live, but it doesn't give me back the energy that I get with a live face to face. And I am so inspired when I get feedback from the group. So I'm putting that over here, but I want to talk with you about the bigger picture and the bigger story beyond the messiness in relationships. So our theme today was we were talking about the difference between difficult relationships versus toxic relationships, and we need to have some kind of a baseline for what is a healthy relationship. I want to share a little excerpt from my book, and it's just a short little list from Patricia Evans, and it's on page 122, and she is, Patricia Evans is an expert on verbally abusive relationships, but you know, we get so confused, don't we? Because what's normal to us in our families, and we don't realize, oh, this might be toxic. So I want to just share with you this short list. She talks about a dysfunctional or a toxic relationship will be more like just disregarding you versus validating you. Hostility on the dysfunction side versus believing in the goodwill of the other person. Having this attitude of control on this side and versus intimacy or, you know, vulnerability. Manipulation versus mutuality. Now these are kind of words that I'm just throwing out here, and we could flesh these out, but I can't do it all in a video here. But competition, if you're like constantly in competition with your spouse or your difficult person, versus partnership, and unequal person, one person powering over another versus equality, and recognizing each of your value. But one thing that I dealt with personally, and I was confronted with it, I talk about this story in my book when I went on a spiritual direction retreat with my spiritual director, David Benner, who was also my professor, and I went to Canada. I had a remarkable experience, and he was so gentle to confront me about one of my issues. And he was so, instead of saying, Judy, you're controlling, he said, Judy, we've got some social engineering things going on. And what that means is, and I didn't know it about myself, but I began to look at it. I had this script, and I wanted the people in my family to play these certain parts, and they weren't playing the parts. So for me to raise my level of awareness was huge. I know that this is a different relationship as we're meeting here on the video, and I have been giving to you. I've been giving you some content, and I hope that it's been so helpful to you. In a personal relationships and dysfunctional relationships, a lot of times we'll have one person who gives, and gives, and the other person takes, and takes. Or one person who is empathic is able to get into the feelings and understanding of the other person, and the other person doesn't. So I want to just offer to you, there's so many big things going on right now because my books are in, and I didn't really expect them until this week. I do have and I got them on Good Friday, but I'm so glad to have them, of course. But I do have my landing page up, and would love for you to go there, judycounselor.com. So here's really what I'd love for you to do. First of all, go to that page and buy a book. Secondly, read it. And if it resonates with you, this is not just a book about Judy Herman's messy relationships. This is a book that, even though you may not identify with some of my stories, you will resonate because it's your story, because you are an authentic person, and we get lost sometimes in our relationships, or we're ministering to people who do. And so to buy a book and get an idea of what I'm talking about. And here's another thing that I'd like to offer you. I really would like just paying attention to who would like to come alongside me about getting this message out. It is a bigger message. Honestly, I think it could be a movement. And I'm creating a membership site. If you resonate with this message, and maybe you're in the middle of your own mess, to be part of something bigger than yourself, like being able to influence other people and help them, or having some aha moments of your own, and then having an outlet with which to make a difference. While you're doing that in the middle of your mess, may be the most healing thing you can do. You may be a professor that counts or that teaches other people. If you're a therapist or a people helper in some way, or a pastor, and you have people that you lead, and you don't know the stories because we don't talk about our messes. Consider buying a copy first to get acquainted, and then ask yourself, is this something that some of the people that I'm ministering could make a difference? It could be a transformational difference in their lives. We all need to grow, and we need to take risks and increase our awareness. And I would love to help you do that, and you to help me, right? We can have this reciprocal relationship, and I would absolutely love to stay connected because I'm still developing those ancillary products around the book, and I'm coming up with some feedback with the people that are reading it and giving me some feedback so that I know what the needs are. So I'm so glad that you joined me. And yes, so I'm going to answer to some questions. Like this would be like the part of my teaching part that's done, but I do want to answer some questions here. And so a question, thanks Rhea for asking this. This is like, cool, please ask some questions. Is it possible to be so paranoid? Is it possible to be so paranoid about manipulation that it has a negative effect on your relationship? I would say a wholehearted yes. We can be so focused on other people, and that's something actually that I talked about in the meetup today, talking about the relationship dances and how we inadvertently invite the thing that we absolutely don't want in our relationship. We can be, and we get confused about, oh, what is manipulation and what is toxic? Is this toxic? Is it healthy? And we get in this fog about we don't know, but we are limited by our own perspective. So another thing, like if we don't own our own, let's say, darkness and issues, for me, I mean, I got a lot of other things, but I'm not going to share them all right now. But when I was confronted with, oh yeah, Judy, you've got some social engineering issues, control issues, whatever, if you don't own it, the part of that in yourself, you're going to end up marrying it. Okay, so we need to raise our level of awareness about ourselves and be aware of how we may inadvertently, not on purpose, but we are inviting the very mess that we don't want. And that's another thing, when you get together with your partner, this is something else that came up, like you're going to have energy with someone with whom you feel familiar with early in the relationship. And of course, you've got all the neurochemicals and getting you outside of reality, and we just, you know, we're in love, right? And then those neurochemicals wear off after about 3 months or so, or maybe 3 years into the marriage. And then we go into this other place. But people are wounded and they operate out of their woundedness, and then we might envision them, oh, they're manipulative, or oh, they're narcissistic, or oh, they're this, or oh, they're that. But we don't realize or don't look at ourselves. And so I hope that that's a good answer for the question. And if anybody else has some questions, please ask. Sometimes I kind of get carried away with the excitement here.